So this is day number 3, legs. This might be the most challenging day and also the day that you have to be the most careful with, because this is typically where we see most people have the worst form and where you typically get hurt the most. So we're gonna start with the bad form that we typically see. First of all, before you start squatting, you wanna keep your legs or your feet shoulder distance apart. You don't wanna be too wide, you don't wanna be too close. Shoulder distance apart. Now Carlos is gonna demonstrate what a bad squat looks like. So notice how his knees are going over his toes. Every time he's doing that, that's putting a ton of pressure on his patella and around the ligaments on his knee, which will eventually end up in an injury.
Some people even go like this.
Some people also lean forward because of lack of flexibility. So if you feel that you're falling forward or you feel that you're gonna fall back, what you can do is bring your hands forward as you're going down to counterbalance the movement and you don't fall back. Show them now what a good squat looks like without the hands. Without the hands. So notice how his knees are now not going over his toes. Basically about 80% of your weight is on your heels. Bring your toes up as you're doing that so they can see that your weight is really not on your toes. None of your weight should be on your toes. The moment it's on your toes, you're becoming more quad dominant. So go down again. One other thing that I want you to keep in mind is as you're coming up, the gluteus muscle, meaning your buttocks, it's a muscle that you have to literally voluntarily engage. Because if you don't think about engaging the glutes, you're gonna become more quad dominant. So as you're coming up, you wanna squeeze your butt. Imagine you had a can between your butt cheeks and you're trying to squeeze the soda can. So if you lack flexibility and you come down and you feel you're gonna fall back, you wanna bring your hands forward. Do it again. This will help you counterbalance so you don't fall back. But once again, most important thing, look at his knees. They don't go over his toes ever. And you're sitting back down. Notice one more time, give me a bad squat. That's bad. That will definitely destroy your knees, eventually your hips, and even your lower back. All right, let's move on to the second exercise. So this is our calf workout, which like all our workouts, we like to start with our own body weight. Now, all you have to do in this exercise is pretty simple. Push your body up, push your body down. Push your body up and let your body fall slowly. Now, there are many different variations that you'll see with the toes in, out, but honestly, they're unnecessary. Simply, as we said, keep it basic and effective. Now, you can find a way to do these body weight calf raises anywhere in the gym that you can find a platform and something to hold on so you can basically pull your body up and down. So this is our second exercise. Now that we're nice and warm, we want to start squatting, but with a bar and obviously adding weights. Now, for the purpose of this video, we don't have a bar rack. Obviously, if you're gonna be doing this exercise, you wanna have a bar rack in case you're fatiguing, you can clip it on, stop the exercise. So we're gonna start with good form. Notice how his chest is up. Notice how he's not dropping his chest. What that's telling me is that he's engaging his quads, his glutes, and his hamstrings properly. Now, if they lack flexibility or good form, they tend to drop the chest forward, which puts all the weight on the lower back. There we go. See how he's dropping his chest down to his knees? That's putting all the weight on his back. So this is the form that you don't want. Another way that you'll see, typically they'll come down when they're fatigued, they'll bring the hips up first and then the upper body. You don't want to do that. That's bad form. No, give me first good form. Good form. Notice how it's one unit as he stretches up, the hips are thrusting forward and his chest is never dropping forward. Notice, once again, look at the knees, they're not going over the toes, and the chest is always up. Now, when they start fatiguing, you'll see they come down, they'll bring the hips up first, and then the chest. Do that. That's bad, guys, because you're putting all the weight on your lower back, which will eventually lead to an injury. If you notice you start fatiguing and you start losing your form, stop, take a break, and continue on the next set. So this is another variation we use a lot for those who have lower back pain or a lower back injury. This basically avoids you from having any bad posture. Notice that his knees do not go over his toes. So you wanna make sure that your feet are high enough so your knees do not go over your toes. Now let's move on to the third exercise. This is the second calf exercise we use a lot. Once again, as I've said from the beginning, keep it basic and effective. There's no need to do complicated calf raises other than body weight, and then if you have this machine available in the gym, feel free to use it. Now, my last point on this, make sure you don't do too much weight to the point that you fatigue and then you can't bring the weight up, because I've seen this happen before. So make sure that you're conscious of the weight that you're using, and when you're fatiguing, make sure you stop and lock the machine. So here's our third exercise, deadlifts. Now that we're nice and warm, we're gonna start going a little heavier, because this exercise specifically really works on your glutes and hamstrings. Now, same technique as before, shoulder width apart. Most of the weight, about 80% of it, should be on your heels. You should not be putting weight on your toes, because the moment you put weight on your toes, you're becoming more quad dominant rather than glute and hamstring dominant, specifically in this exercise. Now, notice how as he drops, his back is straight and shoulders are pulled back. He's not dropping his shoulders. The moment you drop your shoulders, you tend to round your back, which puts all the weight on your lower back. Let your shoulders fall forward so they can see. This is what you don't want. That's how you end up hurting your back. Keep your shoulders back after this one. Do it correct now. Shoulders are pulled back. Barbell is kept really close to your shins. Do you mind turning sideways, Carlos, so they can see? So as he does the deadlift, notice how close the bar is to his knees. You don't want to let it out, because if you let it out, all the weight falls on your lower back, which is what we want to avoid. And as you're pulling up, just like how I told you in the squats, the glute muscle is more of a voluntarily engaged muscle, meaning as you're coming up, you're squeezing your butt. Remember the motor neurons that I spoke to you about, which engage the muscle fibers? You want to focus all your energy as you're pulling up on your gluteus muscle, and imagine you're squeezing a can between your butt cheeks, all right? So give me one bad form, let your shoulders fall so they can see this angle. That's what you don't want. You don't want to let your shoulders fall forward, and you don't want to pull your legs before you bring it up your body. You want to come up as one unit. That's correct form. Now let's move to our last leg exercise. So here's our fourth and final leg exercise. We typically leave the lunges as the last exercise to avoid any injuries, because now, just like when you're doing dumbbells or individual exercises, you tend to put more stress on the joints. So now that he's fully warm, he's gonna perform what a lunge looks like. Now guys, there are many variations. Once again, I don't know how advanced or basic you are, but our goal is to keep the movements basic, simple, and effective. Now, Carlos is gonna show you a lunge stepping back. The reason why I don't like stepping it forward is because most people, when they step the lunge forward, they tend to bring the knee over the toes, which is how you end up hurting your knees. Now, by nature, when you step back, you're sitting down, which, do it correct without leaning your back. So by nature, when you sit back, look how his knee doesn't go over his ankle, which is what we want. Now, we also don't want to lean back, because a lot of people step, that's what you don't want either. Your back, you always want it on a vertical plane. And same concept as before, guys. When you're stepping up, you're stepping on your heel and you're voluntarily engaging the glute. If not, you're always gonna trigger more the quad rather than your glute. We like to keep things basic, simple, and effective. Now, Carlos is gonna show you walking lunges where you can perform them forward or backward. Now, please only use these form of lunges when you feel completely confident that you understand the form and that you know what you're doing. Because if you don't, this is typically where people get hurt. Specifically, when you start increasing the weight and you start to fatigue, most people lose their form, and this is where they get hurt. So how I said before, there are many variations to the leg workouts that we've shown you and to the lunges. But for the sake of this video, we want to keep things basic and effective. So this closes out our leg workout.